to go and get my HPV teddy. You're making me belligerent. You're gonna catch hands. I feel some kind of catharsis reading this now. I had to practice to say that word so many times before my interviews, but let's keep reading. Hey wonderful people, it's me Angie. I hope you're having an absolutely amazing day wherever you are. We're going to jump right into this video. We're going to look at my medicine personal statement as highly requested. The number of DMs and emails and comments I've gotten about this. It's about time. We are also going to cover a couple tips and tricks for getting through this process because it can be quite overwhelming. I do remember being quite scared. You guys know I had a lot of drafts, and this is about the time of the year when people who are studying medicine and dentistry, or hoping to do so anyway, are looking to start writing their personal statement. So before we get into all of that, the first thing I want to do is say thank you, Medify, for sponsoring this video, and to take a moment to talk about 2 tools they offer which can really help you have the easiest process in making your personal statement, writing your personal statement, and checking your personal statement. Okay, so the first thing, which is probably the latter one that you'd want to use, is their content reviews. So essentially, you're going to get reviews from 2 different people who are very experienced in this field. We're going to talk about reviews a bit more in the tip section. Should you only be getting it checked by your teachers, or should you also ask the postman and the personal trainer and your cousin Vicky, who you haven't spoken to in 2 years, to also check it out? Things like that. And another thing that I really like about their reviews is that they're quantitative, not qualitative. I'm not saying I'm biased. I'm not saying I'm a scientist or anything, but sometimes when reviews and feedback is qualitative, it's quite hard to interpret and understand because it's subjective. But if you have it there, 8 different sections you need to include, and a score for each of them, then you know exactly which sections you need to prioritize, because hypothetically, if you only have time to work on 2 of the sections before you send it off, you know exactly which ones you should focus on, and that is a game changer. That's not something that other people are doing, and I really do think that you would appreciate that from them. The next thing is the speed of the review. So even with me, I remember I started writing my personal statement quite early, so speed of reviews or feedback wasn't a problem at the start, but when we started getting closer to the deadline, yeah, it was a problem, because everyone and their mum was giving their personal statement to the teachers, etc. But with Medify, they have promised you've got 3 days and you will get your content checked. Okay, it's a money back guarantee. In 3 days, you will get your content back, which is something that is invaluable because, you know, you don't have much time sometimes when you're in this process, and that is a really useful thing. So what about the actual content course? What are they covering? Well, they cover a lot of things. They have in-depth video tutorials which will help you along the way, and you guys know me, I'm an audio-visual learner. I do love a good video. I do. That's why I use YouTube, for example, to study so much. In addition, they have loads of advice and examples. Sometimes it can be hard to find examples online, and we're going to talk about tailoring your personal statement and why some examples are actually going to be useless to you. So the fact that you have loads of different ones here is something else that is really invaluable in the personal statement course. There's also a guided reflection, which is very useful, and you can write your personal statement right there, because structure is something that people disagree on and can find overwhelming and confusing, and yeah, the fact they help you with that aspect as well is really useful. The link is down below. Do go and check it out, and you can look for personal statement, either the review, or you can look for the course itself. Okay, so you might be wondering, what do I need to include in my medicine dentistry personal statement? Medify have already got that written down for you. They've got 8 different things that you can look at. Obviously, there will be overlaps, there'll be different ways of articulating these things, but these are things that you should be considering. The first one is motivation to study medicine. Do you genuinely want to do it, or is it because your parents said medicine, engineering, or law? The next thing is work experience, and this might be virtual with the times we're in. I was really lucky. I managed to get a lot of in-person work experience rather, and I don't think I would necessarily study medicine if I hadn't had that experience, because it was really eye-opening, and that actually really helped the quality of my personal statement. Leadership and teamwork, which is important because sometimes you're going to have to take a role of a leader, and sometimes you're going to have to work in a team. That is very important. And of course, you need to have a balanced approach to life. So if your personal statement shows that you can't see balance, and this is something else that you'll look at when you get to the interview points, that's going to be a bit of a problem, because we need to be able to acknowledge without good there cannot be bad, without right there cannot be wrong, and sometimes we need to have a little balance in the middle. The next two things we need are evidence of empathy and reflection. Empathy, can you feel what I feel even though you haven't walked a mile in my shoes? Reflection, looking back, I know that I would have done this, I would have done that. And that is something that's really, really valuable in this career and in studying medicine. So do make sure you include that. And that's something that even if you look at other people's structures for personal statements, that comes up a lot. So reflection, reflection, reflection. Okay, and the final two things are your academic achievement and a conclusion and your use of English. Obviously, medicine is an academic course, so academics will come up at least a little bit, so do keep that in mind when you're writing your personal statement. And those are all the 8 things that you should include in your personal statement according to Medify, and they're wonderful, wonderful course. Should we look at my personal statement now? I think we should. Once again, I'm going to try and put this on screen for you. If I cannot, I apologize. You can just look at the wonderful left side of my face. Should I get my glasses? Or should I squint? My desire to study medicine developed through my research into HIV after learning about it in A-level biology. I read a very short introduction to HIV/AIDS, which illustrated that the impact of disease transcends just one individual. In an interview on the 2020 Visionaries podcast, go check out my podcast, I spoke to the author and he explained that solving issues like poverty reduces HIV prevalence. This is because poverty can drive behaviours such as prostitution, which can spread HIV. When doctors on my hospital placement in Plymouth told me that conditions like asthma are more common in poorer areas, I decided to complete a course on public health to learn more. I learnt that environment impacts your health. For example, if inappropriate building materials such as asbestos are used, often found in council-owned housing today, this increases the chance of respiratory diseases such as mesothelioma. I had to practice to say that word so many times before my interviews, but let's keep reading. Through my HIV research, I also learned that it's vital that doctors are integrated into their communities to ensure effective disease management. Senegal has a lower HIV prevalence than African nations with similar levels of poverty because imams and doctors collaborated throughout the early 2000s. In contrast, in talking to a PEPFAR Nigeria doctor, I realized that although NGOs are aiming to reduce HIV spread through incentives like cheaper and flavored condoms, the disconnect between the community means that these are the wrong solutions being presented. This is because condom usage does not stop the spread of HIV in Nigeria through people selling their blood after injecting drugs, which is common practice in the slums there. When I learned that, I was also mind blown. In researching CCR5, the protein that usually HIV uses to enter cells, I found an article on the first gene-edited babies. The twins' father was HIV positive and therefore their gene for CCR5 was modified through CRISPR, the topic of my EPQ. If you want an EPQ video, comment down below. But let's keep moving. I was interested to learn that CRISPR technology mimics CRISPR, which is a DNA archive that keeps copies of viral DNA, so if reinfected, the Cas9 system can cut out the viral DNA, thus preventing and protecting the bacteria. Gene surgery, which is the process of using and repairing genes even using CRISPR, needs to be done in vitro, so IVF was used in the case of the lovely twins. The biggest concern in using CRISPR is off-target edits when the wrong gene is modified. I was therefore surprised by the fact that the twins' entire genome was sequenced and it was found to have no off-target edits before the embryo was transferred. Further research showed me that one of the reasons HIV was chosen for the first experiment is because the gene for CCR5 is far away from other genes, so the risk of off-target edits is therefore minimized. Currently, UNESCO is calling for a temporary ban on gene editing due to the associated risks. When I learnt this, I was conflicted because we need to prevent unethical practice, but I would also be excited to follow the development of CRISPR throughout my degree. From my work experience in neonatal ICU, I can appreciate the emotional demand of medicine. That was an intense work experience, but I digress. A consultant breaking bad news taught me about tactfulness and the importance of treating each patient as an individual. Shadowing surgeons highlighted the importance of supporting your patient to understand their condition so they can give informed consent to their treatments. Researching the case of Montgomery versus Lanarkshire Health Board helped me to further understand why in the diabetic obstetric consultations I shadowed, the doctors discussed all outcomes, even if unlikely. From competing in science fairs in my free time, I have developed time management skills, the ability to work under pressure, that's very true, and honed my communication skills when interacting with judges and the public. For example, when I gave a speech at the Getty Institute, I had to communicate my project on the brain to both members of the public and scientists in a way which everyone could understand. And I believe these skills, combined with my understanding of the emotional impact and level of commitment required for doctors, will help me to excel in this course and to positively impact my community. I feel some kind of catharsis reading this now. Where do we even start from this? I covered all the different 8 things that we mentioned, so you can see me reflecting, you can see my work experience, my use of English. I use ProWriter Aid, which I absolutely love to help me editing this editing this personal statement. My motivation to study medicine is clear, it's apparent, you see it throughout. Empathy, that's something that you see. Curiosity, there's so many positives about this as well. Obviously there are negatives which we could go into, but that is not the point. Before we get into the tips, what I want to say is that perspective is everything. So if you guys have watched any of my videos, you know for a fact I wanted to study medicine for the last 12 years. A-level biology did not start that. But did you hear what I said? I said developed, not started. So even things like that. So for example, let's say you don't want to mention that you wanted to study medicine for a long time. You can say what bolstered it, what helped it, what nurtured it, what developed that interest rather than what started it. The original story, for those of you who haven't seen, for example, my engineering personal statement video, click up here to have a look at it, or the link down below. 12 years ago, when I was about 7, I used to operate on my sister and my dolls using plastic cutlery, using Vaseline, toilet roll, and the occasional sanitary pad that I nabbed from my mum, who was very, very pleased about that. But yeah, perspective is everything. Let's get into some of the tips. Some of you might be panicking right now. Do not panic. That is quite an academic personal statement, but you have to think about the unis I was applying to. I applied to research heavy med schools, and that's it. They were all either traditional or integrated, but we're going to get to that. So the tips. The first tip is to make your personal statement personal. And you might hear that and say, Angie, I'm going to click off this video. I feel some kind of way. You're making me belligerent, Angie. You're making me belligerent. You're going to catch hands, Angie. Before you get angry at that very generic tip, let me elaborate. So essentially, when I say personal, I mean if someone reads it, they should know it's you. If you've checked out my engineering personal statement, which I keep referring to, you can see clearly that it's me. I care a lot about healthcare and the quality of people's life. And even in my engineering personal statement, that is reflected. I make so many terrible puns and dad jokes in real life. Anyone in a group chat with me can attest to that. I'm always making bad jokes. And my chemistry class, sorry not sorry, that's all I did in those lessons. But in my engineering personal statement, you could see me making puns. I also love STDs and HIV, like studying them as a topic. Hamza the HPV teddy is over there, and I'm not about to move this setup to go and get my HPV teddy, but it's something I'm very passionate about. So if I was writing a personal statement without referring to, of course, quality of life, which I did with the asbestos, but also STDs, HIV, that would also be a red flag, because that's what Angie loves, that's what Angie researches. Why else would I read a textbook, have a blog post, and a podcast episode on HIV? Things like that. So do make sure it's personal. At first that can be difficult, but the last tip will help you with the first tip. You see what I did there? Okay. The next thing is you need to tailor it to your uni types. So I have another personal statement up here from one of my amazing friends, Holly. And she applied to very, very different med schools to me. I didn't just have it randomly. I was like getting resources for the MedSoc so people could compare personal statements. Anyway, hers is completely different to mine. Completely different. She applied to more PBL, CBL schools, and none of them would let me in with this personal statement. I wouldn't have gotten an interview. Hers is about Sunday school and volunteering and personality and how she's suited for medicine. That's great for the schools that she applied to because they care about that. The schools I applied to do not care about that. And you need to know what the schools care about. So go through, look up personal statements from those schools if you can find them online, reaching out to people. So what I did, because I was already following the ACS accounts of all the unis I applied to, so I said, hey, can you guys link me with a medic? Some of them said yes. Boom. The ones that didn't, I went through the follows. I said, who studies medicines? Hi, this is random. This is how I found you. What kind of thing did you put? But there are other ways for you to find out what they want, because the unis will tell you a lot of the time. They will tell you what they care about. So do go and check that out. Because at the end of the day, if you want to be making a strategic application, you need to be writing the right kind of personal statement for the right kind of uni. Of course, we still need those 8 things included, but there's going to be levels to it. But anyway, we will talk about strategic applications in another video because that's something I'm quite passionate about and I think I've got the knack of pretty well, if I do say so myself. Okay, the next thing is verbs are important. Angie's about to have a rant. The way you say things matters. Passive versus active. If I hear any of you writing passively in your personal statement, we're gonna have an issue. Because that's not what you're meant to do. You're not meant to do that. Don't you dare say, this taught me that. That makes it sound like you weren't involved. You were just taught, like it just happened to you. It happened and it didn't. You need to look proactive to be getting into dentistry, medicine, etc. You learned this from that. And that's a really key thing to understand. You need to twist the perspective. You weren't helping to tidy up after your school dance show. You were being an avid member of your school community, helping the environment when you were picking up those plastic bottles. You were restoring the quality of the school hall. You need to make sure that your perspective is correct. And yeah, verbs are, I'm stopping because I'll rant for 3 minutes and that's a separate video, but the verbs you use are very important. So literally, if you have to Google active versus passive verbs, go and do that and make sure everything is active so it looks like you are not lazy, you're a hard worker and you go and do what you've got to do. And then the final tip is to draft again. I don't know the exact number of drafts that I sent off. I could probably check from my emails. It was like 31 or 32 and you guys are like, whoa. It was probably like the last 5 drafts that were like decent. If you're writing and then you realize you hate it, close it and start again. If you're almost at the end and you don't like it, close it and start again. You can copy and paste things from here and there, but you need to understand it's okay to change the drafts. My original personal statement, if I read it to you guys, you'd be confused. It's 10,000 miles away, and that is okay. Of course, you have the 2 reviews from Medify, which you can go and use. But before you get to that point, you need to write a draft that you're at least happy with. When you're sending it off, it should be a point where you're like, you know what? I could send this off if I wanted to. You shouldn't, you should still get it checked, but it needs to be getting to that level. So not feeling pressure or feeling bad, because a lot of people will get their personal statement down in like 10 drafts and that's it. If you need to take longer, that is okay. That is okay. Everyone is different. Everyone writes differently. Some people are left-brained, right-brained. Some people are more creative, less creative. Things like that. If you need to write on a different color sheet of paper, if you need to write it by hand, if you need to use a different font, I have like 2 or 3 different dyslexic friendly fonts that I use whenever I'm writing long things. Do what you need to do, but understanding drafts are okay. So with that said, we have covered the Medify review, the course, we've covered my personal statement, we've covered tips and what to include. That is a lot to cover in one video, but I hope you like it. Share it if you care. Comment down below, say hello, any feedback you have, any advice you have if you've already been through this process. What else can you think of that can really help people with their personal statement, or any additional questions that you have. Don't forget the link to my engineering personal statement and the link to Medify's website is down below, of course, and give this video a big thumbs up. As always, smile, subscribe, study hard, slay hard, and I will see you wonderful people again very soon. Very soon, because results day is in 2 days from when you're seeing this. So yeah, you'll be seeing me in 2 days, maybe, hopefully. Yeah, bye guys.